If you're listening to this, it's because you want to know about the real estate going on in Eagle River, Alaska, and you came to the right place. My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm a realtor in South Central Alaska with Keller Williams, and my mission is to help you to build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching you in real estate. Now, before we get started, do make sure you give this video a like, subscribe, and let's go and jump into today's market update. Now, the first thing that we're going to look at is the residential side, and the first thing we're going to look at on the residential aspect of the real estate market is what's going on in the active inventory. So, this time last year, there was 103 properties that were available on the market. Now there is 87. Now, the thing that stands out to me about the inventory for Eagle River is that we are seeing that the seasonalities are starting to come back. The year before, it was kind of just a flat line across the board for the number of properties that were available on the market. Inventory is still down from what we saw in previous years, so that's a trend that continues to move forward. We're seeing less and less and less and less inventory, but at least we're starting to see some seasonality return to the market where the number of properties available is starting to respond in a cycle from the year before. But it's just on a much smaller scale than what we've seen in previous years. But that's kind of favorable. In Anchorage, specifically in the condo market, it's pretty much just flat across the entire board. So seeing a return of seasonality is kind of a promising thing. Now, the next thing that really stands out to me is the number of properties that actually sold went up very slightly. This time last year, there was about 70. Now we're seeing about 74. So despite the inventory being down a little bit, we are still seeing a very healthy demand for properties in Eagle River. Now, the total number of properties that have sold in Eagle River has gone down from the previous year. Really what we're seeing across the board is, we do have less inventory this year than we did the year before. And really year to date, that's been the case as well for the entire year. But we are still seeing we're kind of staying neck and neck with what we had the year before, except I believe it was the month of May or June where last year it just really outpaced what we could do this year because the inventory went down so much. But yes, there still continues to be pretty healthy demand for properties in Eagle River. Now, the average sold price, and I'm sure this is what a lot of people are really interested in. Average sold price in Eagle River went from about $424,000 this time last year to about $471,000 this year, which gives them about a 10.9% increase for the average sold price. If you're in Eagle River, this is great news. This means that the property values in the area are continuing to go up because there is a very high demand for it. And if you're on the other side of it, you're wanting to buy, this is also good news because, your time on the other side of the process, once you do buy a house, is going to be way shorter than the amount of time it takes for you to actually find a property. So it's still good news for you. And if I were you, I probably wouldn't want to buy in an area where suddenly the prices are just bottoming out. That makes it super easy to buy because I don't know if I'd really want to buy in an area where it's known for being super cheap and you could get a deal. That usually doesn't mean stability, which once you're on the other side of the equation, that stability is more important than getting a good deal for most people. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is what's going on in the condo market in Eagle River. So condos, not a particularly huge sector of our market. I've said this a million times before, but it's becoming more and more an option here in Eagle River because we are limited on how much space that we have. So I suspect we're going to continue to see condos grow and their portion of the real estate market share kind of that they do have. So we're going to cover it. Not a whole lot going on here though. This time last year, there were only 22 condos available on the market. Now it is 7. So pretty big drop. Not a whole lot of condos available. The next thing that we see is that the total number of condos, despite the fact that there's not nearly as many condos available, actually stayed pretty well in pace with what we saw this time last year. There were 11 condos that sold this time last year. Now we're seeing that there are 10. So not a whole lot of change there, which really does kind of mean there's a lot more demand for condos in this area compared to what we saw the year before. Now, the next thing we're seeing is that the average sold price for condos saw a pretty healthy increase. It went from about $266,000 the year before to about $297,000 the year after that. So pretty healthy increase for the average sold price here in Eagle River, at least for condos. And if you've got a condo, that's great news. If you're looking to buy one, like on the residential side, still good news because you want to buy an asset that's actually going to increase in value instead of just being able to get something at a fire sale and congratulations, you just bought a share on the sinking ship. So you want to see those prices going up even if you're buying. Let's take a break real quick here. For those who've been watching for a little bit, you do know that I host a podcast called the Alaskan Journey Podcast, where I interview people who've recently moved up here and also talk with local experts about what it's like living up here from their perspective. So if you haven't checked that out, do make sure you go take a look at that real quick. And for those of you who are looking at getting your house on the market real quick here, I do have a free resource for you. It's my seller guide where I kind of walk you through the steps of what it's like getting your property on the market. If that is something that would benefit you, by all means, do make sure you reach out to me on my website. Link for that is down below. And just make sure in the little comment section you put seller guide so I know what to send you. Now, let's go ahead and look at what's going on in the multifamily market. So the multifamily market in Eagle River, very high demand if you can find a property that's actually priced in a somewhat realistic position, because most of our properties in Eagle River and multifamily are going to be private landlords, and I've seen a lot of them just have no clue as to what their actual value of their multifamily properties are. It's in very high demand. That doesn't mean you can just ask whatever you want. So let's go and dive into the numbers though. This time last year, there were 4 multifamily properties available in Eagle River. Now there are 3. So not a whole lot of movement, and that's not a whole lot of options there at all. The total number of properties that sold this time last year for multifamily in Eagle River was 0, and now it is 2. So again, not a whole lot of movement there for multifamilies. Now the next thing we're going to look at is the average sold price. So this is a pretty interesting little graph here because it shows that average sold price this time last year was about $568, if I recall correctly, and this year we're seeing it's about $487,000, which is a pretty decent little increase. But the year before, we see that there was about a 46% average increase for this time up to this point, because it was about $388,000 and up to about $568,000. So that's an enormous jump, and I would have expected to see kind of a returning back to that smaller number, just because that was probably just an enormous deal that happened, and it's a small pool and it threw everything off. But we are actually seeing an increase for the average sold price in Eagle River. So I'm not quite sure if we're seeing a 46% average price increase across the board here. That seems pretty unrealistic, but we are seeing that there is a definite strong increase for the value of multifamily properties in Eagle River. The big thing with those, if you're an investor, is you just want to make sure the numbers actually make sense. A lot of the pricing I'm seeing on the properties right now, I've run the numbers on just about all of them. They don't make sense. Let some other schmuck have that deal, because you're lucky to break even. Realistically, you're probably going to end up losing money in the long term, which if you're playing the long game and you're okay losing money for about 5 years or so, all power to you. For me, when I'm investing, I expect my properties to be able to perform from day one. I'm not looking to get one up or screw the other side. I'm willing to pay fair market value for what your property's worth, but I am definitely not going to be taking the brunt of a bad deal. And unfortunately, a lot of multifamily properties I'm seeing, they're just large properties at this point with a lot of roommates. Okay, it's not really performing very well. So if you're looking at getting into this market, best thing I can say at the moment, run your numbers, make sure they actually make sense. If they don't, sit back, let someone else have that deal, or wait until a lot of the sellers suddenly have to start coming back down to reality. So I hope this has been useful for you. If it has, make sure you give this video a like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.